Hello students, welcome to VHSE classes, and our today's topic is ethics and ethical principles in nursing. So what are ethics? Let's study. Ethics refers to the moral codes for nursing, and these are based on the obligations to service and respect to the human life. Okay, so what are ethics? Basically, ethics are the moral codes that we have to follow whenever we are practicing in nursing professional. So there are following ethical principles that we follow in nursing, and it is very important. So there are these. The first one is autonomy, beneficence, justice, non-maleficence, fidelity, veracity, accountability, responsibility, and confidentiality. These are all the ethical principles that we have to follow in nursing. So let's start. What is autonomy? Autonomy is basically freedom of choices. Okay, here we have to respect the person, patient, and their decisions. They should have the freedom of choices, and whenever they are making any decision, we have to respect that decision. That is autonomy. Autonomy is freedom to make a choice, freedom to make a decision. That is autonomy. Next one is beneficence. As the name is suggesting, beneficence means that we are doing good for the others. Okay, whatever we are doing, whatever the procedure we are doing, whatever the care we are providing, that we are providing to benefit the patient. That is beneficence. Next is justice. Okay, so justice means we have to treat every patient equally and fairly. Okay, we have to be fair here. We have to provide equal care to every individual as per their needs, and we do not have to discriminate any person or patient here. So that is the another ethical principle. That means justice, fair care or equal care to the patients. Next is non-maleficence. Non-maleficence is a term where we will try to avoid any kind of harm to the patient. Okay, non-maleficence is avoiding harm to the patient. Harm can be either intentional or unintentional, but we have to avoid doing any harm to the patient. This is the non-maleficence ethical principle in nursing. Other than that, the next ethical principle is fidelity. So what is fidelity? What is the meaning of fidelity? It involves faithfulness, loyalty, and honoring our commitments. Whatever we are committing to the patient, whatever we are telling to the patient, that is truth, and we are honoring our commitments. Whatever we said that we will be providing care to the patient or doing for the patient, we will honor that commitment. Okay, so that is fidelity. Next is veracity. So what is veracity? The principle is concerned with being honest and telling the truth. Okay, fidelity was fulfilling your commitments, but veracity is telling the truth. We have to be honest with the patient. We have to be truthful with the patient. Whatever the condition is, whatever the patient's condition is, we have to be truthful with that. Okay, we do not have to tell a lie just to comfort the patient. We have to be truthful here. And the next principle is accountability. Nurse should be accountable. Okay, to be a professional nurse, you should be accountable for your actions. Whatever the care you have provided, whatever the procedure you have done, you should be accountable for that, answerable for that work. That is accountability. It will be enhancing the patient safety, and it will be promoting the healing of the patient. So you should be accountable. This is another principle. Next is responsibility. Okay, after accountability there comes the responsibility. Responsibility is obligation to perform a duty. Whatever the role is assigned to you, you are performing that duty very well. That is responsibility. You are using your scientific knowledge, you are using your personal judgment to fulfill that duty in a proper way. That is responsibility. Another principle here is confidentiality, and it is very important. Okay, as we all know, nurses are the bridge between patients and doctors, and sometimes patients share their problems with the nurses, but here it's the right of patient and it's our ethical principle that whatever the patient tells us, whatever they share with us, we have to keep that confidential until unless it is required by the healthcare team member for the treatment of the patient. Okay, we do not have to breach the privacy of the patient here. Okay, so this is confidentiality. Whatever the information the patient is providing you, you do not have to share that until unless that is therapeutically required. So these were all the ethical principles. Okay, after that comes the codes of ethics. Okay, so what are the codes of ethics? Codes of ethics is a set of ethical principles that are accepted by all members of the profession. Okay, this is a set of morals, this is the set of principles which is followed by all the nursing professionals, and these are a guide. They will guide us how to behave in a nursing profession, how to provide high quality care in nursing. So there are following codes of ethics in nursing which helps to form the decision making in nursing, which help to enhance the nursing profession. Let's talk about these. So first of all, what is the purpose of this? Why we need codes of ethics in this particular profession? Codes of ethics provide standards for professional behavior. Okay, what should be the standard of a nursing profession, and it is provided by the codes of ethics, and these codes of ethics are based on basic values of a profession and the principles of our nursing profession. Next is it inform the public about the profession minimum standards. Okay, it also tells the patient what they should expect from a nursing personnel, what they can expect from nursing as a profession. It also demonstrates our commitment to the public, how we want to serve the public, what's our commitment to the public, and it also provides a major guideline outline in ethical consideration of nursing, and it also provides guidelines for a professional behavior, how we have to behave in a particular situation, what should be our goals. It is the guideline for that. The codes of ethics, they also help to protect the right of individual. Okay, the right of our patient, the rights of the family members, the right of the community. It also helps to find out it. Next, it reminds us of social responsibility. As nurses are also a part of society, and the codes of ethics, it reminds us that how we have to be in the society and what's our role as a social being. And the basis for self-regulation and relationship with others, obviously, it also helps us to provide how we have to talk with the patient, how we have to behave with the family members and other healthcare team members. And it is a well-defined policy and procedure for dissolving the ethical dilemma. Whenever the nurses are in ethical dilemma, the codes of ethics and the ethical principles will guide the nurses how they have to resolve that ethical dilemma or that confusion. So these are some of the purpose of the codes of ethics. So codes of ethics are the professional standards, and it is an integral part of foundation of nursing. Okay. Codes of ethics by Indian Nursing Council. Okay, as we all know, there are codes of ethics by Indian Nursing Council and International Council of Nursing. So we are talking about the codes of ethics by Indian Nursing Council. So by the Indian Nursing Council, there is a set of ethics for nursing practice in India that we have to follow. Okay, so what are the codes of ethics here? The nurse respect the uniqueness of individual in provision of care. Like we are discussing this in previous classes too, every individual is different, so that the need of that particular individual is different. So we have to consider that unique, every individual is unique, so the needs for care will be unique. Next code is the nurse respect the right of individual as a partner in care and help in making informed choices. And it is also very important that nurses make sure that individual is not just a patient, it's like a partner in care. We have to respect their decision, we have to involve them in decision making, and that's how we have to make the informed choices for the patient. Next one is nurses respect individuals' right to privacy maintain confidentiality, and shares the information judicially. Okay, nurses has to respect the rights of privacy of the patient. We do not have to share everything that the patient has said, and if we are choosing to share the information provided by the patient, we have to use our judgment that what part is necessary and what part is not required as therapeutically. Next is nurse maintains competence in order to render quality nursing care. Okay, you should be competent enough. You have to use evidence-based practice whenever you are providing care to your patients. The nurse, if obliged to practice within the framework of ethical, professional, and legal boundaries. We have talked about some of the ethical principles, and nurse should have to perform within those ethical principles, and there are some legal boundaries that nurse has to follow. Okay, and the next code of ethic is nurse is obliged to work harmoniously with members of healthcare team. As we are studying that nurses work in collaboration with healthcare team, and they have to work in collaboration, they have to have a proper communication with every healthcare team member. And another code of ethic is nurses commit to reciprocate the trust investing in nursing profession by the society. As you know, as per society, nursing is a noble profession, and there are many services those are provided by the nurses to the society. So we have to reciprocate that particular feeling, and we have to work up to those standards in our nursing. Okay, so what are the codes of professional conduct here? Other professional responsibility and accountability. Nurses are responsible, nurses are accountable. As a nurses, you have to take the responsibilities of whatever the tasks you are performing, and you have to be accountable for that. Okay, and next is communication and interpersonal relationship. Nursing is a profession where you have to communicate with the patient, you have to communicate with the family, and you have to communicate with the community. So you have principles of communication. Next is valuing human being. So nurses should value a patient as a human being, not just a ill person. Okay, we have to respect the dignity of the patient, and we have to manage the patient, we have to manage the hospital area or the area where we are working, and nurses has to work for the professional advancements. And how you can work for the professional advancement? By enhancing your standards, by continuing education, or by doing the researches in nursing, so you can enhance the professional advancement. So after these ethical principles, there comes the legal aspects in nursing. Okay, so as we all know, nursing is having ethical and legal constraints. So we have discussed the ethical, but now we are moving towards the legal. So there are many legal aspects in nursing. So what is a legal aspect? Legal responsibility plays a very important role in nursing, and nurses must have an understanding of law. Okay, as a nurse, you should know what is the laws that we have to follow in nursing, and you should be having a knowledge of the professional boundaries. Okay, what are your boundaries, how you can practice safe, and what are the standards of care you have to uphold. Nurses are accountable for their professional judgment and actions. Whatever the actions you do, whatever the actions you take, whatever the care you provide to the patient, you have to be accountable for that as per the ethical principles, and it is also a legal aspect in nursing. So what is a law? First of all, we will discuss what is a law. So nursing law is defined as a rule of conduct, executive orders and regulations and legal precedents which have their objective promotion and protection of individual and community by nursing practice. Okay, so in nursing law means it is a law which will be preventing the community and nurses by different kinds of actions. Okay, whatever we are doing, we have to do it under the laws and regulations of a nursing profession. So what is the purpose of law in nursing? Why we need laws in nursing? First, it provides a framework for nursing actions. Okay, it provides a baseline for the nursing actions, what you can do and what you cannot do, what you should do and what you should not do. So next, helps to maintain standards of nursing practice. Obviously, it is providing us a baseline that it is okay to do, it is not okay to do. So it will be providing us a standard that what should be the minimum standard of a nursing care. Next is it helps to establish boundaries of nursing autonomy in nursing actions. Okay, as we all know, nursing is an autonomous profession. There are many things that a nurses can decide for the patient, but there are boundaries too. And as a nurse, you should know what are the autonomous boundaries of yours and what are not. Okay, what decisions you can make and what decision you cannot make as per the laws. And it helps to protect the nurses from liabilities. Laws are also for the protection of nurses. In the cases of legal dilemmas, it will also help the nurses to protect themselves in the cases of legal issues. So these are the purposes of laws in nursing. Framework, to provide framework, to help to maintain the standards, to provide the clear guidelines in autonomy, and to prevent the legal dilemmas. So this is the purpose of laws in nursing. Next is, what are the types of laws? There are different types of laws. Okay, so first comes the public law. Public law is the basic law that is concerned with state and citizen. That means with your government and you. That is the public law. Next is constitutional law. It is as per our Indian constitution. Okay, constitutional law governs the state and it is judgmental law of the country, and it assumes the supremacy of laws in functioning of the state and decide the structure of state or the power or its duties. So as per constitution, this is the constitutional law. Next one is the administrative law. Okay, so this is as per the administration of the state, as per the administration of the institution. It refers to the body of law that regulate bureaucratic managerial procedures. Okay, for example, it regulate the trades, it regulate the pollution, it regulate the taxes, etc. in the country. That is administration or administrative law. So the first one was the public law, constitutional law, or administrative law. Next comes the criminal law. Okay, so as the name is suggesting, it is a law against any criminal offense. Okay, for example, like it is the law against thefts, it is the law against assaults, robberies, murders, etc. And it has a set of provisions for different kinds of crimes. So that is criminal law. Next kind of law is civil law or private law. Okay, so here we are trying to protect the legal rights of the person. That is civil law. And what it deals with the divorce proceedings, it deals with the child custody proceedings, or the property dispute is the most common example of this. That comes under the civil law. Next is the contract law. As you can understand by the name contract law, that means it will be dealing with the confusions or dilemmas or issues between two parties who is agreed on some kind of contract here. Okay, so that is contractual law. So these are the basic types of laws in our society, not in nursing but in overall in our country: public, constitutional, administrative, criminal, civil law, and contract law. So there are some other words that we study in the laws. Okay, legal issues. That is the felony. What is a felony? Felony is a crime of serious nature. Okay, so whenever we will use a word felony, that means it is a crime that is very serious, and the punishment for this is imprisonment and more than 6 months. That is the punishment for this. After that is misdemeanors. That means crime of a less serious nature. Okay, and here the punishments are usually the fine, imposement on the person, or prison for a short term, but it is not a serious kind of. So after that comes the what is the difference between a criminal and civil law. As a nurses, you should know this. What is the difference between criminal and civil law? So criminal law is related to crimes that negatively affect our society as a whole. Okay, as we have talked about under the criminal laws, it comes under the harming any person, assaults, any kinds of thefts, any kinds of charge as trying to harm patient, trying to murder a person. That all comes under the criminal laws, and these are set by the parliament, and there are some punishments for these laws too. Okay, and in case of criminal law, if person is found guilty, it is punished by imprisonment, fine, or sometimes the death penalty is also there in the criminal law. Whereas civil laws, they deal with the private rights of the individual. Okay, and the punishment here is compensation for the injury or the damages, sometime the fine imposement, or sometime minor imprisonment can be there. So this is the main difference between criminal laws and civil laws. In criminal laws the punishment is harsh, but in civil laws the punishment is little bit on the other side. Okay, there might be a compensation included or imprisonment included. So this is basic terms in laws. Okay, felonies, misdemeanors, and the criminal and civil law. So in nursing, the first kind of thing or the laws we are talking about is the torts. What is a tort? Okay, so tort is defined as anything wrong committed by one individual against other person or other person's property. When one person harms the other person or his property, that comes under tort. So what is a tort? It is an act of omission. When a person must not have done some acts that he is expected to do, or he must have failed in his duties. Okay, you should have done something but you have not done that, and anyhow that have harmed the patient, that comes under the tort. Wrongful act or omission must be recognized by the law, and legal damage is there. And legal remedy, what would be that it must give rise to a legal remedy in the form of action for the damage. Okay, there should be a legal action against the tort, cause here the one person is harming another person or his property. So there are different types of tort. The tort is mainly divided into two types. One is intentional tort and another one is unintentional tort. Okay, so in intentional tort, intentional means that we know what we are doing but still we are doing it. Okay, so the first one is battery, assault, false imprisonment, fraud, invasion of privacy, and defamation of character. These all comes under the intentional tort. And another one is unintentional tort. Here the person does not know that he or she is harming the patient, but somehow his or her action is harming the patient or the person. That is unintentional tort. And in unintentional tort there are following things. One is the malpractice and another one is the negligence. So let's discuss this. First of all comes the intentional torts. Intentional torts are when you know what you are doing and you know the result of that particular action but you are still doing that. That is intentional tort. Okay, and here the first thing is battery. So what is a battery? Actual or unwarranted contact with another person with or without his or her consent. When someone is touching some other person with or without his or her consent, that is considered as battery and it is an intentional tort. Okay, whenever you are going to touch the patient, even for the therapeutic purposes, you should have a consent of the patient. Without the consent of the patient, you cannot touch the patient even for the procedures like hair care, back care, or any other procedure. Okay, so you have to follow the consent, otherwise it is considered as a battery. Next is assault. Okay, so what is assault? Physical or psychological harm which causes the victim to be fearful. Okay, or it is an attempt or intentional threat to make harmful or offensive contact with other individual. That is assault. Here you are either threatening the person, okay, or either psychologically threatening them or physically threatening them, but anyhow the person is threatening other person that they will do something to harm them. That is called as assault. Okay, so it is assault. In battery the person is touching the other person without consent, but here the person is trying to harm or threatening to harm the patient physically or psychologically. That is assault. So next comes the false imprisonment. Okay, false imprisonment is restraining the person, hindering the movement or restricting the movement of a person. That is called as false imprisonment. And you cannot restrain a person, you cannot hinder the movement of a person without proper consent or without a proper order from the physician for the restraint. And if someone is doing that, that is considered as intentional tort. After this comes the trespass, and this is also an intentional tort. It is unauthorized entry into another person's land or unauthorized handling of property of another person. Okay, so that is trespass. Whenever a person is entering into someone else's home, someone else's property, someone else's room without their permission, or they are mishandling their property even without their permission, that is called as trespass, and it is a intentional tort. Next is defamation. What is defamation? As the name is suggesting, that publication of a false statement about an individual, either verbally or any other form, to a third person that damages the reputation of the person. Okay, whenever a person tells any other person in a verbal form, in a written form, in other social media form, but wherever they are talking something false about a person, and that is damaging the character or that is damaging the image of that person, that is called as defamation. And defamation is also an intentional tort. Is this false communication resulting in injuring to the person's reputation? Okay, so it is oral or spoken defamation, and libel is written defamation of character. So it is called as intentional tort, and defamation is a part of intentional tort. And next one is invasion of privacy. As we have talked in ethical principle, we have to maintain the confidentiality of the patient, but whenever someone is intruding the person's life, or there is unjustifiable intrusion into person's personal life without their consent, that is called as invasion of privacy. Okay, and it is an intentional tort. So another intentional tort is fraud. As the name is suggesting, deliberate act or failure to act with the intention of obtaining an authorized benefit, either for oneself or for institution, may cause harm to a person or property. That is a fraud. Okay, where the person is failing to act properly, or they are just pretending to act and they have an intention of harming the patient for their own benefit, that is called as fraud. And organizational privacy. So it is about the privacy where the government agencies and various organizations keep their events and actions from being known to other individuals or agencies. And if someone is breaching this privacy, organizational privacy, so that is an intentional tort. Another is informational privacy or data. Whenever a person is breaching any person's data, any patient's data, or breaching their confidentiality, that considered as a tort. And next one is workplace privacy. It concerns with the maintaining privacy in workplace of an individual. Okay, wherever a person is working, we have to maintain their privacy over there. Laws are not permitting the employees to keep surveillance cameras in the restrooms, and they are not allowed to monitor the private calls of the employees. And if this is happening, this is also considered under intentional tort, because it is not allowed as per the law. Next comes the unintentional tort. As the name is saying, unintentional. That means person is doing something that is harming the patient, but they are not aware of it. That is unintentional tort. And the major unintentional tort is negligence. So students, what is negligence? Negligence is the failure to meet accepted standards of behavior. Okay, and resulting in physical or mental suffering or harm to the patient. Whenever the nursing personnel are performing a particular care or procedure on patient, and they are not meeting the standard of that procedure, that is called as negligence. Negligence is defined as the omission of an act that is reasonable and sensible person would do in a similar situation, and or do something would not do in a certain situation. Okay, so that is negligence, when you are avoiding something that you should not do or you should do in a particular situation. That is negligence. And the next unintentional tort is malpractice. As the name is suggesting, you are performing something but you are not delivering the standard of that particular procedure. That is malpractice. Malpractice is personal negligence that cause harm, and when nurses commit a negligent act and it result in injury, it is called as malpractice, where you are practicing whatever you have to practice but the standard of that practice is not appropriate. That is malpractice, and it is unintentional tort. So these were some of the torts or legal laws in the nursing. And next topic we have here is legal safeguards in nursing. Okay, so although these are the laws in nursing, there are some legal safeguards for the nursing where nurses are protected by the laws. Okay, so what are these? The first one is licensure. All the nurses who are practicing in any kind of healthcare, they should be having a license. License is a guarantee that all the nurses, they have the eligible qualification and skills they should have for the practicing of nursing profession, and this is provided by the state nursing councils or Indian Nursing Council. The next legal safeguard here is good Smartian law, and it is very important in the medical profession. What is a good Smartian law? Good Smartian law exempt doctors and nurses from the liability when they provide care and assistance to the people during emergency. As you know, we have some ethical constraints where we can perform some task but we cannot make some decision. But good Smartian law prevents a nurse or a doctor when they take some decision without any prior orders from others, and they will do this thing for the betterment of a person. That is good Smartian law. Here the good Smartian law will provide protection to doctors or nursing in the areas of emergency. Next is standard of care. Obviously, standard of care are a legal safeguard for a person. Okay, if the nurses are functioning within the standards of care, it will provide them a favorable outcome. Next is informed consent. Informed consent is a great thing to prevent nurses and doctors or the healthcare providers in the cases of legal issues. Okay, we should have an informed consent. Informed consent means whatever the procedure we are doing, we have told the patient each and everything about that procedure in their language, whatever the language the patient can understand. Okay, whatever the positive aspect of that procedure and whatever the negative aspect of that procedure is, that is informed consent. And in the cases of legal or medical issues, it will provide the nurses, doctors or healthcare a safeguard. And next one is documentation. It is very important in nursing. Documents are the legal we can say documents, and they will be safeguarding a nursing personnel or medical personnel in the cases of medical legal issues, because they act as a source of evidence. Okay, so if you have performed a duty well within the time, you will have documented it, you will be safeguarded by the law. So these are some legal safeguards in nursing: license, good Smartian law, standards of care, informed consent, and the documentation. So students, next topic in this is ethical and legal issues in nursing. Right now we are familiar with the ethical principles and we are also familiar with the legal issues. Let's discuss what are the ethical and legal issues in nursing. Okay, so there are following ethical and legal issues in nursing. First one is informed consent. And as I told you, informed consent is a document, legal document. It can safeguard you and it is a legal document. So here you have to have a proper informed consent from the patients, and that should be a written consent to be taken from the patient before any procedure, but it should be informed. And here you can take the consent from the patient, if the patient in that condition, from their family members, and if kid is involved, if a child is involved, you have to take the consent from their parents, but that should be informed. You have to tell them each and everything in that consent. Okay, next is misuse of controlled substances. There are so many laws, there are so many acts that will prevent the misuse of controlled substances. As a nurses, you will be having authority over many drugs, like you will have the drugs like antidepressants with you, anti-anxiety drugs will be there, hallucinating drugs will be there under your custody, but you should use them properly. okay, for the therapeutic purpose only. And if you are not doing that, that will be a legal and ethical issue for you. Okay, you have to use it whenever the prescription is there. Other than that, you should not, any nursing personnel should not misuse these particular drugs. Next is confidentiality. As we are reading this again and again, confidentiality is a major legal and ethical issue in nursing. We should maintain the confidentiality of the person, we should respect their privacy, and we have to have information with us. Okay, and whenever you are sharing this information, you should have a consent of the patient, and it should be therapeutically valid to share with other people. Then you have to share, otherwise it is a legal and ethical issue in nursing. Next is organ transplantation. As we all know, organ donation is based on various laws and medical criteria. So nurses have to educate the patient regarding organ donation. They have to counsel them regarding this, and they have to tell them what is the procedures. Okay, so there is an act also, that is transplantation of human organ, that has been passed in 1994. So it is a act which is controlling the organ transplantation, and you have to follow this act whenever you are counseling the patient regarding the organ donation. Next is euthanasia. Okay, euthanasia is a term which is widely used in abroad or outside the India, but in India it is still under some we can say it's still going on, the discussion is still going on euthanasia. In some cases there is euthanasia is allowed, but you need a legal permission for euthanasia. What is euthanasia? Basically it is an action taken with the intention of ending a life. Okay, wherever a person or a physician or a nursing personnel, they take the decision to end the life of a person, and it should not have the it should require the permission of the court. Okay, it should require permission of many organizations, and after that it can be done, and right now it is not a common practice in India. Records and reports, these are very important. Being a nursing personnel, you should maintain each and every record, and you have to have each and every report with you, because records and reports, they serve as a medical document or as a legal document, and in the need of medical legal issues, they serve as a evidence. So you have to maintain the records and reports accurately, and you should not have any thing corrected in them, and if you have corrected, you should mention the name and date on that particular document, otherwise that will not be valid in the medical legal cases. Next one is the medical research. Medical research is also an important area under the medical legal issues. There are some of the areas in the medical research which are not ethical. For example, researching on a human being is not ethical. Okay, so there are so many other areas, like we cannot use some of the drugs on the humans. We should not violate the rights of a human being. So these should be properly evaluated whenever we are conducting a research, and we should not do anything which is hindering with the rights of the patient. Okay, even in the research. So this was all, and we have discussed about the ethical issues, we have discussed about the codes of ethics, we have discussed about the ethical principles and various types of laws and medical and ethical issues in nursing, and basically the ethical and legal issues in nursing. So this was all. Thank you so much, guys.